Tagal. So this time, we're going to talk about Chapter 16, Equity Investments. To be specific, we will talk about dividends, share split, and share rights. So some of these are already discussed in our previous accounting subject. So this will serve as a review na lang. So first, acquisition of equity investments. So I think we already had an overview of what an equity investment is. So PFRS 9 provides that when a financial asset is recognized initially, an entity shall measure it at fair value plus transaction costs that are directly attributable. So kanus lang ganitong fair value lang if it is recorded at fair value through P&L. Other than that, lagyan ng plus transaction cost. And this fair value is what we call the transaction price, or the price, the fair value of the consideration given at the date of transaction. So, we have here transaction costs that are directly attributable to the financial asset held for trading or P&L are expensed immediately. So, yun yung sabi ko kanina din. Acquisition by exchange. So, if you buy or if you want to purchase an equity security, then you're going to measure it at first, the fair value of asset given. So, what if bumili ka ng equity investment or bumili ka ng equity securities and nagbigay ka ng machinery instead of cash? So, the measurement of that investment is based on the fair value of that machinery. Now, what if hindi nyo ma-determine kung magkano ang fair value ng machinery na yan? So, we are going to recognize the fair value or record the fair value of the asset received. So, kung ano naman yung na-receive mo in exchange of that machinery, then basically the investment. So, how much is the fair value of that equity investment? So, kung wala talaga, hindi nyo din ma-recognize, then the carrying amount of the asset given. So, the carrying amount of the machinery. And it's impossible na hindi mo malaman yung carrying amount. Kasi yung carrying amount, kung magkano yung amount na andon sa books mo or sa record mo. So, yun yung carrying amount. So, in order of priority, so hindi pwedeng trip-trip mo lang option-option. So, first things first. So, mauuna yung A, fair value of asset given. So, that's fair value, carrying amount, given, receive, given, or give, receive, give. So, that's how we internalize these items before. Sabi ng teacher namin, fair value, carrying amount, give, receive, give. Okay, so ganun yon. Now, what if there is a lump sum acquisition? So, what if may binili ka na 2 or more securities tapos isang bayaran lang? Now, the question is, how much will go to security 1, security 2, security 3? So, magkaiba yon. So, if that's the case, you're going to chop the cost or the amount that you paid based on the fair value of each security. So, wala siyang illustration. So, ganun na lang. The fair value of the security. Now, what if ang isa is walang fair value, pero yung isa meron naman? So, depende. Kung magkano yung fair value ng isa, ibigay mo yun sa kanya. Any excess will go to the other security na walang fair value. So, let's try to find some illustration later para mas ma-internalize na to ang iyahang concept. Now, we have here investment categories. We have trading securities or financial asset at FVPL, which we discussed in the previous lesson. And then OCI, also we discussed it in previous lesson. And eventually, we have here associate, subsidiary, and unquoted equity investments or instruments. So, let's talk about investment in unquoted equity instruments. Itong investment in associate, we're going to discuss it next meeting. Yung subsidiary naman, hindi na siya under ng intermediate accounting. You are going to encounter this one in your advanced accounting subject. So, investment in unquoted instruments. These shall be measured at fair value. However, all investments are measured at fair value, specifically equity instruments. However, unquoted equity instruments are measured at cost if the fair value cannot be measured. So, there is a condition. So, kung hindi naman siya ma-measure at fair value, di gawin mong at cost. Okay? Pero yung mga quoted, kasi sabi, di ba, unquoted. Yung mga quoted equity instrument, they are measured at fair value through P&L. Yung unquoted, pwedeng fair value through P&L, pwede din na at cost. So, ayan. This is just a theory, sale of equity shares. This means that kung marami kang equity shares tapos nagbenta ka, tapos hindi mo na ma-recognize kung saan doon ang nabenta mo, first in, first out, pwede mong gamitin or average. So, ano yung una mong na-purchase, yun din yung unang mabibenta. Or, pwede mong gamitin yung average cost approach. I-add mo lahat, then kunin mo yung average cost para malaman mo kung how much is the investment that you sold. Okay? Cash dividends. Okay? So, this time, ang atoang point of view is equity investment. Tama? Kung equity investment, like what I've mentioned earlier in the previous lesson, you are buying shares from the company. So, kung bumili ka ng share sa company, nagiging owner ka din dun sa kabila. Partly an owner. Depende kung gaano karaming binili mong shares. Sorry. Depende kung magkano or gaano karaming shares ang binili mo dun sa company. But in a sense, you are being a shareholder. And how does a shareholder benefit from his or her investment in the company? It is mainly through dividends. And we have different kinds of dividends. We have cash, the most mas humot of all the dividends. Gustong-gusto natin yung cash. So we have cash dividends. And we also have other dividends. We have shares, we have properties, we have liquidating dividends, and all other rights of a shareholder in the company. So let's begin with cash dividends, the easiest one. If the equity securities are measured at FVPL or FVOCI, these dividends are considered as income. In corporation accounting, we discussed about this, but our point of view there is tayo yung corporation, right? So nagbigay tayo ng dividends unsa ganito ang atong entry, 'di ba? It's debit retained earnings and then credit dividends payable. If you could still remember, I hope you do. Again, that's debit retained earnings kasi babawasan natin si retained earnings or shareholders equity tas mamimigay tayo ng dividends. So dividends payable on the date of declaration. Pag namigay na tayo on the date of payment, then i-debit si dividends payable and then credit na yung cash or property that we want to issue or distribute to our shareholders. But this time, our point of view is tayo naman ang shareholder. Tayo yung nag-invest, investor. Again, before, ang point of view, kita ang korporasyon, kita ang nanghatag og dividends. Karon ang atong point of view, kita ang mudawat sa dividends. So on our end, katong mga mudawat sa dividends, that dividend is an income. And how do we record that? First, if it's a cash dividend, we record it at debit dividends payable at the date of declaration, credit dividend income. Pag na-receive natin, alisin si receivable, magiging debit cash. Okay? And take note that the cash dividends do not affect the investment account. Ito yung pinakasimple kasi hindi mo matatouch yung investment mo or yung financial asset at fair value or at OCI. So, ibang accounts ang gagamitin. Yung ibang dividends, pwedeng maapektuhan ang investment account. So, here are the dates na we need to remember. we have date of declaration. That's when the liability of the corporation arises pag nag-declare sila ng dividends. And also, since nag-arise na ilang liability, nag-arise na po ato ang asset or our right to receive. Kaya nga, nagkaroon na tayo ng dividends receivable at the date of declaration. The date of record, kung sino yung may-ari ng mga dividends, ng mga shares as of this date, sila yung makaka-receive ng dividend or actual dividends on the payment date. Okay? Kung kinsa tong nagunit og shares aning panahona, sila lang ang makadawat sa dividends nga ihatag on the date of payment. So ito, although parang tingin natin, irrelevant naman tong date of record. No, this time magiging relevant to. Kasi kung hindi ikaw ang may hawak ng shares as of this date, kahit ikaw pa yung may hawak ng shares at the date of declaration, wala kang right to receive. That is why, pag nagbenta ka ng share in the middle of date of declaration and date of record, we call it dividend on. Yes. How sad naman itong, dividend on. But what if nagbenta ka from date of record, between date of record and date of payment, we call it ex-dividend. Sakit ng X. Ex-dividend. So what if ako, nako'y share sa inyong kumpanya, balik ka. Kamo ang company, ako ang bibili. Bumili ako ng share sa company nyo. Now, on January 30, nag-declare kayo ng cash dividends. So sabi ko, may right na ako to receive. So dividends, receivable, credit, dividend income. Pero, sabi nyo, ibibigay nyo lang ang dividends on March 30. Depende kung sino yung marirecord on February 28. Pero as of the moment, medyo naghihirap na ako. Hirap na ako sa life. So, kailangan kong ibenta yung investment ko sa company nyo. So, that investment of mine, pag binenta ko yun sa iba, kasali yun doon ang dividend na dineclare nyo yung January 31. Bakit kasali, ma'am? Kasi, hindi pa naman na-record na ako yung may-ari. Kasi the date of record is February 28 pa naman, di ba? So, kailangan ako yung may-ari on that date. Pero since naghirap na ako ngayon, kailangan ko na siyang ibenta. So, ibebenta ko, kunwari kay Maria, and then si Maria na yung may-ari hanggang February 28. On February 28, pag nag-record na ang kumpanya, mag-check nag-attendance ang company, etong share na to, sinong may-ari nito, hindi na ako yung malilista. Si Maria na. Therefore, yung binenta ko sa kanya pala na shares, may kasaling dividend yon. And if that's the case, pwede na ako paninglan ug appeal sa dividends ang ako ang sales price sa iyaha. Now, what if ganito? On February 28, ako pa rin yung may-ari, hindi ko nabenta. So, ako yung naka-record doon. Official record. Ako ang tatanggap ng dividend. But in the middle of March, medyo naghirap na naman ako. So, binenta ko. Now, pagbenta ko, sabi ni Maria, March 31 pa naman ang payment of dividends, right? Tapos, ibibenta mo sa akin before March 31. So, ako yung re-receive ng dividends. Sabi ko, hindi. Hindi ikaw. Kasi ako yung na-check na attendance doon. Ako yung nakalista doon. So, itong dividend na ibibenta ko kay Maria after February 28 but before March 31, ex-dividend na yon. Wala nang kasaling dividend yon. So, yung sales price medyo mababa na. Or just exactly the fair value of the investment, walang dividends na kasali. So, yan lang yung importance ng mga dates na to. Okay? So, this is an example of a formal dividend declaration. So, pwede nyo nang basahin yan. Now, when to recognize dividends as income? Kung kailan nagkaroon ng liability ang company na mag-issue, and that is on the date of declaration. So, nag-declare na sila So, may liability na sila. nag-declare na sila, may liability. Ako naman, may right. So, kung may right na ako on the date of declaration, I could record an income already. Okay? Sige. Now, when shares are sold dividend on and the dividend accrued is specifically included in the sales price, that portion of the sales price pertaining to accrued dividend should be credited to dividend income. So, date of declaration, nag-record na di ba kung income, right? Therefore, pag nagbenta ako, dividend on, dapat kasali dun sa babayaran niya yung dividend na marireceive ko supposedly. So, this is the illustration. I have 1,000 shares, 100,000, and then may dividend na 5 per share, that's 5,000. Binenta ko yung investment ko before record date by 150. So, binigyan ako ng 150, inalis ko yung 100 ko na investment, and also yung income, kasi dividend on yon, and then the gain is just the excess of 45,000. So, babayaran niya, kasali dun sa babayaran niya, yung income na supposedly marireceive ko. Pero hindi na ako ang makaka-receive kasi siya na yung malilista on the date of record. Now, the second type of dividends is the property dividends, and this includes the shares of the company to a different company. So, let's say, kamo na pod ang kumpanya. Ako na pod ang investor gihapon. Now, kamo, sa pangalan sa inyong company, let's say IA1 company. IA1 company also has shares in IA3 company. Sige. So, si IA1, nipalit og share kang IA3. Karon, katong shares niya kay IA3, gusto niya ihatag sa iyang sarili nga mga shareholders. So, ako, kay kinsa gani ko nga shareholder, kay IA1. And then, si IA1, mag-distribute og shares ni IA3 sa amua. Ang hirap naman. Gusto nyo ba i-ano ko pa? I-jam ko ulit. Gawa tayo ng board. Ay, hindi na siya maglipat. Hello? So, kamo na po si IA1. So, this is your company. So, this is IA1. Here is your shareholders. Manjod. Kabalong drag arrow. Here are your shareholders. IA1, napod siya investment in IA3. Ayan. May shares siya in IA3. Investment yan ha. Kana nga shares, gusto niya ihatag sa iyahang mga shareholders. And that's what we call dividend in kind or property dividend. Kasi on the part of IA1, that is investment in equity or investment in associates, for example. Or investment in shares na lang din. Investment in shares, IA3 company. Asset niya yon, right? Property niya yon, investment niya yon. I-distribute niya sa shareholders niya. That is not a share dividend kasi hindi niya sariling shares yon. Shares yon ng kabilang company na naging investment niya. So, property niya. That's why it is called a property dividend and it's not a share dividend. Unsa lang din yung share dividend, ma'am? The share dividend is the share that the company issues or distributes to its shareholders na sarili niyang shares. Okay? And when we talk about property dividends, we issue it at fair value. So, debit non-cash asset, credit, dividend income. So, here is another illustration for that property dividend. Again, this is just a review of our previous accounting on corporation, especially she or shareholders equity dividends. But on this time, we are the investor or the shareholder. So what we are going to debit the asset that we will receive and credit dividend income. Now, this is an example, investment in shares sa kabilang company. So, naging investor na din tayo ni 3, tama? So, balikan natin ang Jamboard. So, kung si IA1, nagbigay ng shares sa atin, nung share niya kay IA3, binigay niya sa atin as dividend. Therefore, naging shareholder na din tayo kay IA3. May investment na din tayo kasi nga binigyan niya tayo ng shares, 'di ba? So, we are going to record investment in shares 3 or company 3 and then dividend income. So, may dalawang investment na tayo kay 1 tsaka kay 3. Okay, another example is when the company issues or distributes merchandise, then you just have to debit the type of asset or the non-cash asset that the company distributes. Next, our liquidating dividends. These are dividends na binibigay lang pag papuntang bankruptcy or nagli-liquidate na si company, except for wasting asset corporation like mga mining. So, pwede sila nga mag-distribute og liquidating dividends even if wala pa sila nag-liquidate. But all other types of companies, maghatag lang na sila liquidating dividends kung padulong na sila mag-dissolve or mag-liquidate. So, this is not actually an income. So, take note of that. This is not an income. Ngano man. Di ba income is kanang any increase of your wealth? Kani din siya increase. Gibalik gyud ang imuhang capital. So, gibalik ang imuhang investment. So, hindi yun income. Just a return of investment. Not return on investment. So, you just have to recognize the property na binigay niya and then credit your investment. So, hindi income. Kasi binalik lang sa'yo ang capital. So, for a wasting asset company like what I've mentioned, pwede na magbigay siya ng liquidating dividend kahit hindi pa siya papuntang liquidation. Or pwede ding sabihin niya, okay, this is a dividend, partly income, partly liquidating. So, kung partly income, yung part ng income na yon, i-credit mong income. Yung mga partly liquidating, i-credit mo dun sa investment mo. Now, share dividends or stock dividends. Ito yung sinasabi ko na share dividends na binibigay ng company, but these shares are the corporation's shares. Hindi to share ng kabilang company. So, kung si IA1 magbigay ng share dividends, kailangan sarili niyang share yon. Hindi yung share ni IA2, ni IA3, or ng ibang company. Or else, magiging property dividend yon. So, this is actually called as bonus issue at the same time. We have here the kinds of share dividends. What if bumili ako ng ordinary shares from your corporation? Nagbigay kayo ng dividend na ordinary din. Walang problema. But what if bumili ako ng ordinary shares, pero nag-issue kayo ng dividend na preference share. So, magkaibang type of share na yon. If that's the case, wala pa ring journal entry. No. Pag the same shares, walang journal entry na gagawin. Mag-change lang ang number of shares natin, right? Kasi nga, nag-increase. Binigyan tayo ni company. Pero pag magkaibang kind of shares, like ordinary yung original, pero nag-issue kayo ng preference, magkakaroon tayo ng journal entry. And we are going to distribute our investment based on the fair value pa rin. Katulad ng lump sum liquidation. So, an example of that is this. Different from those held. So, kung meron tayong 10,000 ordinary shares for 800,000, tapos nagbigay si company ng 10% share dividend pero preference, ibig sabihin nagkaroon ng another 1,000 nga preference, kailangan nating i-distribute yung 800,000 na ito. How do we distribute that? Based on the market value or the fair value of our shares. So the market value of ordinary is 150 and the market value of our preference is 100. So that is 1.5 in total and 100,000 in total. Therefore, we have a grand total of 1.6 million. And dira na to i-base ang 800,000 nga distribution. So, atong i-chop-chop sa 800,000 based sa fair value ni ordinary o ni preference. So, that's 800,000 times 15 over 16. So, that's 750. 800,000 times 1 over 16, that's 50,000. Therefore, we will have an entry. Alisin natin yung 50,000 from investment in ordinary shares and ilipat natin sa investment in preference shares. Yung 50,000. Okay? So, magkakaroon lang ng ganitong complication kung magkaibang share. Yung binili at saka yung naging dividend. Kung pareho naman, walang entry na kailangan gawin, mag-change lang ang cost per share kasi naging mas marami ang shares natin. Okay? Shares in lieu of cash dividends. Pag sinabi natin in lieu, that is in exchange or in substitute of. Okay? In substitute of. So, instead daw na cash dividends, ang atuang na-receive is share dividends. Okay, but before that, let's proceed to a certain activity na naman. Tunga talor. Ay, okay, kanina pa pala yan. So, let's have an activity. Let's answer this problem first before we go to the next concept. Okay. Let's have this. Pipicture muna ako. Ayan, nahihirapan ako. Wait lang. Sige. Still have 30 minutes left. Murag, napagaw naman ko. Katulugo na pod ko. Charot. Okay, we have presumptuous company. The same mechanics. Andun na siya sa Messenger actually. Nahirapan lang akong i-share sa screen dito kasi naglo-load. Ayan. Ito na pala. Presumptuous company. Alright, we have Noreen and we also have Quiko who submitted an answer. Actually, they have the same answer. Ayun na naman si Glemar. The woman who knows it all. Sige. Let's answer. Actually, madali lang naman siya. Sabi niya, what amount of dividend income should be reported for the current year? So, we are talking about year 2019 here. Tama po ba? And presumptuous company owned a 10% interest in Bial Company. Tapos itong si Bial naman, nag-issue ng dividends. And specifically, nag-issue siya ng cash dividend. 500,000 on November 30. Record date is December 31. Although the payment date is next year pa, pero 'di ba? Magre-record tayo ng income and receivable on the date of declaration, which is November 30. And that is 500,000, pero 10% lang naman yung ownership natin dun sa company. So we will just enjoy the 10% of that, and that is 50,000. How about the second bullet? On October 15, 2019, the entity received a liquidating dividend from clay mining. Di ba pag liquidating, hindi income yun? So, it's just a return of your capital. So, you don't credit dividend income there, but you have to credit the investment itself. So, the answer there is 50,000. And we have Miss Kamasura again, who got the 50,000. So, Miss Noreen, huli na to. Ito na yung huling beses na makikita ko yung pangalan mo dun sa chatbox. Charot lang. Hindi naman. But just like Glemar, Noreen has 3 points already. So that's enough for our participation. Ayan. So this time, thank you. And actually, we also have Quiko, we have Risa, Glemar, and we have Giliera, who answered the same correct answer. Sige, let's try this one naman. Reminiscent, tama ba? Okay. Reminiscent Company. Ayan. Naka-share pa ba ang screen ko? Ay. Sorry po. Okay. And may answer na yung iba. We have Mr. Loro of 1.15, the same with Quico, and then we have Eber of 1.77. Sige, let's have Reminiscent Company question number 1. What is the gain on sale of investment using the FIFO approach? So, galing nyo ha, naunhan pa ko ninyo. Charot. So, we have two equities here. Two investments. We have 20,000 at 100 and 30,000 at 120. Sabi ng question, the gain on sale of investment using the FIFO approach. So, sabi niya gain on sale, therefore, may sale pala na nangyari. Let's look at the transactions for 2020. On the month of January, we received cash dividend at 10 na wala namang effect sa investment natin, right? Walang effect. Debit lang tayo ng dividends receivable or cash and then credit tayo ng dividend income. However, our January 20 share dividend has an effect on our investment, specifically the number of shares. Hindi maapektuhan yung total cost. So, ibig sabihin, itong 2 million at saka yung 3.6, hindi yan maapektuhan, kundi ito, yung cost per share and yung number of shares. Diyan tayo mag-change. So, kung naka-receive tayo ng 20% share dividend, may Jamboard na naman ba? Eto. So, kung naka-receive tayo ng naka-receive tayo ng 20% share dividend. Therefore, yung first na share natin magiging 24. Tama ba? 20,000 plus the 20%. So, 24,000 shares. And that is 2 million. So, how much is the cost per share? So, that's 2 million divided by 24. Ayan, bungkig. So, we have 83. Tama ba? 83.3. So, lagay na lang natin 83.3. How about the next shares? We have 30,000 and 3.6. So, we have 30,000 times 2%, 20, so that's 6,000, right? So, magiging 36,000 na yon. And, constant na 3.6 million, hindi mag-change. But, our cost of share or per share is 3.6 million divided by 36,000, that's 100 each. Tama? Sabi ng problem, on December 30, nakabenta tayo ng December 10, nakabenta ng 30,000 shares at 125. So, kung first in, first out, ito, diretso na tong benta. Tama? So, that's 24,000 shares at 2 million. Ito yung carrying amount. And then, we have, huwag na tayong at. So, that's equal to 2 million. And kulang pa tayo ng 6,000. So, kukunin natin yung 6,000 dito. So, magiging 30,000 na lang yan. So, that's 6,000 times the 100 cost. So, that is 600, right? Therefore, the cost of the other 6,000 is 600,000. So, that is a total of 2.6 million cost. Pero nabenta natin siya ng 125 each. Therefore, that is our our selling price of 30,000 times 125. How much is that? That's 3.75 million, right? So, 3.75 minus the carrying amount using the first in, first out. Pila ganito? This 2.6. So, minus 2.6. How much is the gain on sale? So, that is 1.15 million. The gain. Okay? And the one who got away, we have Mr. Loro. Yan. Isa ka na lang din, Mr. Loro. Nagpanikad na gyud ni si Miss Cueco ug si Ever ba. Nagulat ra gyud ni nga mahuman mong tanan. Mahuman si Glemar, mahuman si Noreen, mahuman si Adrian. So ayan. So our answer is 1.15. Sige, the same problem. Balikan natin. The same problem, but the question is, ilisi lang ning using the FIFO. We are going to use the average approach. Okay? The same problem, but the question is, gain on sale of investment using the average approach. Uy, ang galing nyo. Lagi kayong nauuna kay sa akin. Siguro kung classmate ko ninyo, kaligid ko magka-score. Galing ha? Impressive. Sige. If we are using the average approach, parang mas mas madaling hanapan ng shortcut. So, using the average approach, we now have 24,000, right? And then we have 36,000. And that is a total of 60,000. And then we have 2.6 million. Muna nagkadimao ako ang kuan. That's 2.6. Ay, di pala 2.6. 2 million. And then 3.6, that's a total of 5.6. Tama? So, 5.6 million divided by 60,000. How much? Is it the 93, right? 93.3? Yes, that's the 93.3 cost per share. Ayan. So, that's 5.6. Now, kung tag 93.3 ang isa, and then gibaligya na to 125, so that would be 125 minus 93.3. Struggle. 93. Nagkadimao. 93.3. Therefore, we have a gain of 31.67. And the 31.67 gain per share, nakabenta tayo ng 30,000 shares. Therefore, how much? Magkano ang total gain? 950,000. And again, we have Mr. Adrian who got the correct answer this time. So, last na lang dyan po ka Adrian. Mo naging po ng last. Ayan. So, we have 950 followed by Mr. Alfanta and Miss Sanchez. So, 950,000. Now, if you are going to be asked, to, sasagutan na natin once and for all. If we will be asked about the total amount that should be reported as income from the investment using the FIFO approach, that is the answer that we had on the first question, that's the 1.15, right? Plus the dividend or the cash dividend nga atong na-receive, which is 10 pesos times your 50,000 shares, 500. Therefore, our total amount of income using the FIFO approach is 1.65 million. Again, the 500,000 cash dividend and the gain on sale of investment na 1.15. Nag-burp na ko. Sabot. Sige na kong storya. Okay. So, let's go back to our discussion. We have here shares in lieu of cash dividends, and pag mingon tag shares in lieu of cash dividends, supposedly makadawat kag cash, pero ang gihatag sa imuha is shares. So sabi pa, it is generally accepted that shares received in lieu of cash are income at fair value of the shares received. In the absence of fair value, the income is equal to the cash dividends that would have been received. So, priority number 1 is the fair value of the shares received. Kung hindi mo naman malaman kung magkano yung fair value, then i-record mo na lang kung magkano yung original cash dividends na dapat mong ma-receive. So, in this example, binigay niya naman ang market value, so wala tayong problema. That's 150. Debit investment in shares, kasi nga shares ang binigay, credit dividend income. Kung wala naman yung 150 mo dyan, kung magkano yung cash dividend na supposedly marireceive mo, and that is the 10 pesos per share, and that is 100,000. Now, kung ato siyang balihon, pwede pod. Supposedly, makadawat kag share dividends. But, ang gihatag sa imuha is cash. So, we are going to apply the as-if approach. As-if approach, sabi niya, as if na-receive mo yung share, tapos binenta mo. Tapos yung cash na yun yung na-receive mo as if, based sa pagkakabenta. So, it is assumed to be received and subsequently sold. So, andito yon. Sabi niya, you are supposed to receive 1,000 shares as dividend. Pero, ang na-receive mo ay, ano daw to? 11 shares with a sum of 10,000 and the 1,000 shares assumed to be received as shares. The cost per share would be 100,000. So, ang na-receive mo is 150,000 cash, and then binenta mo as if yung 1,000 na dividends. Yung 1,000 shares na na-receive mo na dividends. Then you have that gain of 50,000. So, saan na naman galing tong 150,000? Dito ba? Applies to 11,000 shares, which is the sum of 10,000. Yes. Ayan. Okay. So, that's 50,000 gain. So, sa ganito, basta, shares received in lieu of cash, priority number 1, fair value of the shares. Priority number 2, the cash that you were supposed to receive kung walang fair value. Now, pag cash naman yung na-receive mo, instead na yung share dividends originally, gagamitan natin ng as-if approach. As if, na-receive natin yung share, binenta natin, and then na-receive yung cash. So, pwede tayong maka-record ng gain on sale of investment or gain on investment. Ito naman, under BIR, of course, pag si BIR kasi, pera-pera lang. So, kung pila gid mo hang nadawat na cash, yun yung gusto niyang i-report mo na income. Okay? So, that's supposedly 150,000 income. That's according to BIR kasi mas gusto niya malaki yung income. Pag malaki income, malaking tax. Now, share split. We already know what share split is. Split up, split down. Pag sinabing split up, dadami ang number of shares. In consequence naman, liliit ang cost per share. Split down, on the other hand, is the opposite. Liliit ang number of shares, pero lalaki naman ang value per share or yung cost per share. Special assessment, these are additional contribution na what if sinabi ng company na kailangan nila ng additional contribution. So, you just have to give the contribution kasi obligation mo yon as shareholder. Siguro malaking pangangailangan ng kumpanya. Pero don't worry kasi in exchange, mag-i-increase din yung investment mo sa kanila. So, you just have to debit it to the investment whatever you give to the company as special assessment or additional contribution na hinihingi nila. Redemption of shares. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina na what if ang preference share mo is iba-buyback ni company. Okay? So, ganun pa rin, investment pa rin naman siya in a sense. Kaya lang, sometime soon, pwede niyang bilhin or pwede niyang i-call. Okay? You have the term there, call. Or pwede mong i-redeem, hindi yung i-redeem. Pwede mong i-surrender or pwede mong ipa-call at your own option. So, di ba, may option din si holder. Depende yun sa contract nyo. Si company ba ang magbuot kung kanus aniya i-call or si holder ba or si investor ba ang magbuot kung kanus aniya ipa-redeem. But basically, that's still an investment, a debt investment. And what if subsequently iyang ipa-call o di tanggalon lang nimo siya sa imuhang asset account or investment account and then receive mo yung cash kung magkano yung bili niya doon sa preference share na yon, and then any difference will be gain or loss on investment. Share right or stock right. Pag sinabi natin share right, ito yung mga preemptive rights. Ang sa ganinang preemptive right, ikaw nga shareholder, you must be prioritized in case na mag-issue og shares ang company. So before na niya i-offer sa tagagawas, iya sa nang i-offer sa mga current shareholders. So kung kinsa tong mga shareholders as of the moment, gusto niya nga kamusta ang una nga mo palit. So we call this preemptive right or share right. Na-discuss din natin to sa corporation accounting, kaya lang yung perspective natin that time is tayo yung company. And pag nag-issue tayo ng right na to, walang entry na gagawin si company. Yung issuing company. But since our perspective this time is tayo si shareholder, tayo yung investor, we are going to record this. Okay? And the standard does not state kung ano ba ang gagamitin. Should we account it separately? Gagawa ba tayo ng ibang account? Or isasali natin siya dun sa investment natin, not separately. So the standard is silent, but there are, anong tawag dito? Academicians and theoreticians na nagsabi na may dalawang schools of thought. We have share rights accounted for separately and share rights not accounted for separately. So, pag sinabi ng accounted for separately and not accounted for separately. So, these are all theories. Kindly read na lang. And I think this is something new sa kaninga in these topics. Hindi kasi natin to na-discuss masyado sa corporation accounting natin during FAR. During FAR. Kasi nga, yung point of view natin dun is tayo yung corporation. But if we still, since we still have time on Thursday naman, then maybe pwede natin siyang daanan. And also, we're going to answer the assignment that I gave you. Or i-check natin yung assignment. And then after this, we'll go to investment in bonds. Or, investment in associates. We're going to proceed to investment in associates. But I think nabasa niyo na rin naman to kasi nga, may assignment tayo dito, diba? So, it's a good thing na while we are discussing, at least review na lang on your part. Hindi siya yung kaka-view pa lang, okay? Stop recording muna ako.